Well, we start with what you just heard. Your guy, Gerard Mayo, and his decision, if it was his decision, to go with Jacoby Brissett, week 1, Cincinnati. Just 30,000-foot view, Paul. How'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where it was headed all along. And I don't necessarily have a huge problem with, going with Jacoby Brissett. I think there are a lot of reasons why people felt that was the right way. What I don't really love is I feel like the decision was made in March, and nothing that was going to happen was going to change that. And
right.
I kind of feel like things did happen that, should have at least offered the opportunity for it to change. And most specifically, I think Drake Maye, unlike what a lot of the prognosticators told us, is not 2 years away from being able to play in the NFL. Now, I'm not telling you that any rookie quarterback, steps onto the field for the first time and is ready, quote unquote, just ready to go.
Right.
But this guy is not a project. This guy needs to learn and develop and get experience just like every other rookie. He's not a project.
Yeah.
So I would have given some serious consideration to starting him right out of the chute. I understand what they did. I understand why they did it with Brissett. And, let's go a week from Sunday. We'll be ready to go. But I do think that Drake Maye, the way he played and the way he improved, I would say the last 8 or 10 days of training camp in the last 2 preseason games, I think warranted serious consideration.
I try to break these things down to its simplest form. And to me, the way I look at it, Paul, is what gives you the higher probability of him being quote-unquote ruined? Now, I don't think he's going to be ruined. I don't think if he started week 1, he would be ruined. But if you're the Patriots and you're looking at this and you say to yourself, okay, what scenario could put him at risk? The scenario that could put him at risk is starting him too early, throwing him into the deep end when the rest of the team's not ready. And it's a risk-reward situation. You know this team's not going to be very good. So
right.
Starting him week 1 versus week 7, week 8, if you start him a little bit later in the season when you feel like you've got things a little bit more together, just makes sense to me.
So I understand that thought. To me, this is all about Drake Maye. And the only reason that I can accept for not playing Maye at any point is if you don't feel like he's ready to go out and perform. He doesn't know the offense. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not going to be able to make checks. He's not going to get them in and out of the huddle.
Yeah.
He's not ready. To me, the rest of it is all irrelevant. Like, do you think
not worried about the offensive line?
No. Do you think Washington's making a grievous mistake starting Jayden Daniels?
No, I don't.
It's just as bad a situation. It's a terrible offensive line. I don't love the rankings, but we'll use the rankings that everybody under 40 loves to use now. I believe PFF ranks the Washington offensive line 28th.
Yeah.
So a rookie quarterback behind a pathetically bad offensive line is fine in Washington with one player with him, Terry McLaurin, and everything is okay.
Well, I would push back on that, though.
In New England, evidently the offensive line is so bad that Drake Maye can't play, even if Jacoby Brissett gets hurt.
Here's the difference, though. Here's the difference to me about the Washington example. Daniels is a different quarterback. Yes, Drake is athletic, but Daniels is an athletic freak, and his ability to break away from pressure is at a high level. I'd also say that, you've got an offensive coordinator there in Cliff Kingsbury that he's proven. He's a proven play caller. He knows what he's doing week in, week out. Of course, Van Pelt has not called the play week in, week out since 2009, so you've got 15 years in between there. And you could look at the players that Washington has with their offense. I think they're pretty well set up for Daniels, not great. But I just think of, when you look at this Patriots offseason and what they had to do on the offensive side, there's just so much new. And we tend to fall in love with the O-line idea. And I'm not worried about the Drake Maye is going to get hurt. I'm more concerned of offensive line falls apart early, and now he starts to regress. And I don't want him to regress.
And that's definitely an issue. And that's why I'm not sitting here, kicking and screaming that they didn't play Maye, because I do think there's a possibility that he's going to fall into some bad habits, trying to make too many plays and get off script. And, you start, when you're under pressure like that on a consistent level, you start to sort of anticipate pressure. And we saw, there were times, I think, even in the preseason games, especially this last one against Washington, where I do think he kind of drifted into pressure a little bit.
He did.
Moving around the pocket.
Yep.
So I'm not telling you, this. Why, again, I'm not kicking and screaming with the decision. I understand what they're doing. A 9-year veteran clearly is going to be mentally more prepared to play than a rookie. So I'm okay with Brissett. But I do think there's some value that you can gain by playing in less than optimal conditions, sort of learning how to deal with things happening at a little bit of a faster pace. Kind of accelerate your learning process at times, too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Nick Cattles with Paul Perillo here on a Friday, in for Zolak and Bertrand. You know, when you look at this offensive line, it's obviously an issue. We'll get to them a little bit later in detail. But there's other stuff outside of the offensive line that I think this team has to figure out. And the wide receiver room is one of those things, right?
For sure.
Who's going to be your number one? They don't have a number one, but who are you going to act as your number one? And I just like the idea of Maye coming in, let's say week 5, week 6. He comes in. Hopefully at that point you can trust at least 4 of your 5 offensive linemen, and you have a wide receiver pecking order figured out. And on top of that, Paul, Kendrick Bourne could come back, who's the best receiver on this football team. It's he and Pop, right? So now you have Drake Maye with not one but 2 guys that you know are proven NFL wide receivers. You can throw KJ Osborne in that. I also think we overlooked the Van Pelt thing, as I mentioned. I want to see Van Pelt get a rhythm. I want to see him, week 3, week 4, understand what is best for his offense, what is not best for his offense. On 3rd and 6, where do I want to go? Who do I trust? Work in the tight ends. And I like the idea of Maye walking into a situation that's a little bit more settled and figured out. And I don't think it's a mental thing. I'm not worried about Drake Maye mentally. I'm not worried about him breaking down and not being able to face adversity. Again, I'm more concerned about he's made so much progress with the little things, with the footwork and everything else we've talked about. I don't want to put that at risk and set him back at 0, and we're in the middle of the year going, we just, not wasted but hurt all of the progress that we made with this guy.
Right. Yeah, and those are some of the things that I think that they're thinking about. I think the progress that he's made in – look, I give him a lot of credit for sort of tightening up his mechanics a little bit.
Yeah. And
I just wonder if maybe he's a different kind of player. He's not like just a traditional, 5-7 step drop guy, stand in the pocket and fire away with Tom Brady like statuesque mechanics. That's not the way he played in college. And I think that sometimes those look different to people, and they're like, wow, he's got a lot to learn on this. Like, again, I'm going to go to some of the people that felt like he was 2 years. He needed to sit for 2 years to learn how to play quarterback. I don't think that was the case then. I don't think that was the case based on anything I've seen since. But, who knows? Maybe if he was under a lot of pressure and things are breaking down, maybe some of that stuff would deteriorate and he would go back to, some of the things that people saw on tape. I don't know the answer to that, but I think I think it should be sooner rather than later. I don't think the team is probably going to enjoy a tremendous amount of success this year, and I think it's important to get him a significant amount of experience so you kind of know where you stand heading into 25.
Honestly, I feel like a lot of people are just overlooking the biggest story here. And it's not necessarily who's starting week 1. It's the fact that Maye was in the conversation. And as you said, Paul, a lot of people, Dan Orlovsky saying he might need 2 years. A lot of others saying he needs to have a redshirt year. I know Evan Lazar, your buddy over at Patriots.com, somebody who I respect, he was one of the guys. He and Phil Perry were 2 of the guys saying he's not as raw as people think. He might be able to start earlier. But the discussion around Drake Maye, 80% of it was this guy's going to need time. And I think the fact that it was a legitimate conversation to have in smart football, people said, no, you could play him week 1, and I don't think it'll be a disaster. To me, that's the biggest story because always, from the very beginning when he was drafted in April, this was not about 2024. It was about 2025 and beyond, and the fact that we're having the conversation about him week 1 in 2024 is a great sign.
That's the part I don't like. When he was drafted, they decided that this wasn't going to be part of the conversation in 24, and they didn't let anything that happened change their mind. That's the part of it that I don't like.
That's Alex Van Pelt, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't know all the inner workings, but yeah, I think that he felt more comfortable. Like I said, a couple seconds ago, like, of course you feel more comfortable with a 9-year veteran who has familiarity in your system.
Right. Yeah.
And I can understand from Van Pelt's standpoint, it's his first real crack at it. He's been an offensive coordinator, but never running the show like this, calling plays. I understand that this is an important season for him to sort of prove himself and establish himself as one of these play callers that can be respected around the league.
And it goes beyond Van Pelt, too. I mean, when you think about it, Gerard Mayo replacing Belichick has a lot to prove. You throw a rookie out there, he doesn't look like he's ready. It's a little bit of a mess. It's going to come down on you, Elliott Wolf. That's the first pick that you made as the guy, number 3 overall. He better work out. If he doesn't, you're in trouble.
Nick, that's what this draft. Like, you make a great point about Wolf. Like this draft class. Yeah, we're going to talk about all the different pieces, and I think you made a comment a little while ago. If you get 4 out of the 5 positions on the offensive line settled, well, that would probably mean one of his rookie offensive linemen steps into a role and solidifies it. Jalen Polk, as one of the receivers, maybe grabs a role. But none of that's really going to matter if Drake Maye doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
This draft class is ultimately going to be graded on you hit or missed on the quarterback at number 3 overall.
100%. If you missed on Drake Maye, it could absolutely cost Mayo and Wolf their jobs, and it could cost Alex Van Pelt and everybody else their jobs because you're rebuilding again.
Right.
You can't miss on that pick.
Hey, if you like that clip, check out more videos from Zolak and Bertrand right here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.